First, we're going to start with our guide plates. Now these are adjustable guide plates, so it'll be a multi-step process for the installation. So you can see we have the guide plates, they fit like so, and they're adjustable. They can slide left to right, and this is so you can align the angle of the rocker arms left to right. Now on the AFR heads, the intake port is intersected by the thread for the stud, so you need to put some black RTV on the studs that go into the intake ports. Now at this point, we're just going to install them finger tight because we need to adjust the guide plates in the future. So we're just going to install these guys finger tight here. And on the exhaust port stud, use engine assembly lube to lubricate the threads. And install like so. Now that we've got the studs and guide plates in, we'll drop our push rods in for these cylinders. Make sure that the push rod falls into the center of the hydraulic lifter. Now we're going to install the roller rockers temporarily. Make sure the flat side is up. Now we want to use a stubby ratchet here to just put enough torque on here that you can feel friction between the guide plate and the head, but you can still move it. We're going to set our rocker arms on. Make sure the cam is on the base circle. So this is the engine's at the #1 position. So we're doing the #1 cylinder. And then we're going to do this test left to right to see this slack that's side to side in the roller rocker. We want that to be centered over the tip. And you can see when I adjust this one, it goes further over to the right side than it does to the left. So I'm going to make a little adjustment. Okay, so here you can see about when I do the slack test that it's centered over, it goes as far to the one side as it does to the other. Now, gently take the rocker off without moving anything. Tighten the stud firmly with the stubby ratchet. Put the rocker back on to make sure that you didn't move it. And so you can just do a final check that it wound up where you wanted it to wind up. Once you've decided, okay, this is the final position, then you'll want to do final torque on your studs. Put the rockers back on, do a final check on the slack test that they are centered. Retaining nuts on along with their locking set screws, and you bring this nut down until you can feel drag on it. So you'll feel no drag and a little bit of slack, and then as you bring this nut down, you'll start to feel drag as you're constantly spinning this push rod around. So once you feel that drag, that means all the slack is out. That's your 0.0 latch. Okay. Okay, and then I just set the wrench at a easy to identify angle. So you can see this is just slightly less than 90 degrees. So slightly over 90 degrees. So then I'll go slightly over, and then we lock down the set screw. So this intake is fully installed. The stud is tight, guide plate's aligned, and the valve is adjusted. Now we're going to do the exhaust. Okay. We're rated at 190. Lock it down. Done. So cylinder #1 is completely done. Now we would proceed with the rotating of the engine 90 degrees, moving to cylinder #3, and so forth. We want to go through the firing order. So it's, it starts with cylinder 1 and cylinder 3 and so on. So we have a keyway. We have a lot of ways to know where the engine's at. We have the keyway. We have this ratchet at 90 degrees. We have this guy on the cam, the oil slinger. So basically, every firing is at 90 degrees. So you set your ratchet up at 90 degrees, pull it till it's straight down. You know you got the next cylinder at top dead center, and then you can proceed through the firing order in that way, doing each cylinder, exhaust and intake, one at a time as you go through the firing order. And then when you're all done, you'll be back at top dead center on #1 cylinder. Okay, the rocker arms are all installed, guide plates and studs tightened, valves adjusted. At this point, the engine's at top dead center on the #1 cylinder, and we're going to leave it here until we fire up the engine. So Next step is to install the front timing cover, and then we can install the oil pan. And we're using all this equipment, and so I didn't need to remove the water pump or pulley or hoses, or even this bracket. So just removed it all as one assembly. Make sure to put a new seal. You want to put a new seal on where the crank comes through, and you can see that I've coated the surface with blue RTV. There are gaskets available, but I find using the RTV is just easier. Also, you don't need too much. Most of it's going to squeeze out. Make sure you have dowels on both sides here. Line up in the dowel. And then we can use one of the short bolts top with the rest of the bolts. There's a few different sizes, and then move on to the oil pan after that.